everybody, welcome to my channel. So today I want to tell you guys something that happened in my life, and a lot of you guys really enjoy story time, and I give you guys my day-to-day life, but I really don't tell you what happened to me. So when I think I was 20 years old, I met a boy online. It was right, it was right when like AOL was still huge, and back before like people really, judged people by meeting people on the internet. Well, I met this boy online, and we started talking, chatting all the time, and then we ended up like exchanging phone numbers, and we talked on the phone, and then I met him, and we hung out a little bit, and then right away we became boyfriend and girlfriend. Well, I didn't let my parents know that I was seeing this boy because, I just didn't want them to know. I kept a lot of my life secret. So I started dating him. God, I don't remember when I started dating him. I don't remember the exact time, but we dated, and then I think it was my last year in college. I went to a technical school. It was my last year, and like my parents met him. They didn't like him off the first time. Like when they met him, they didn't like him. He was a year younger than me. He was also homeschooled. I don't know if that makes a difference because of the way he was, but he was homeschooled, and he wasn't as a social person as I was. I had tons of friends. I hung out with my friends all the time. He didn't hang out with anybody. It was just him and his computer all the time. Well, one day I got in a really big fight with my parents, and I was 20. I was 20 at the time. Or was I 21? No, I was 20 at the time. And I got in a huge fight with my parents, and I'm like, I'm out. So I ended up moving out. Like, I moved out like that. Sorry, my nose itches. I moved out like that, and I moved in with him. And it's because I just didn't want to live with my parents anymore. I'm like, I'm 20 years old. I still had a curfew where I had to be home, but I think like by 10 o'clock or midnight. And it's like, and I understand, I lived with my parents. I respect them, which I do totally, my attitude towards them now is a lot different than what it was then. So I moved in with him right away. And then, he ended up having another roommate with him, which was totally fine. So it was just me and two guys. Totally fine, I enjoyed it. I got to hang out with my friends. I was still going to school. But then what he used to do is he used to chat with girls online all the time. And I became like very jealous and suspicious and like paranoid that he was like cheating on me. we were pretty serious. I was living with him. So there were times where I'd catch him chatting with girls online, and he's like, oh, I'm just chatting to my friends. Well, he would end up paying these websites to watch these girls. And from this day, that's one reason why I don't like porn. I don't like any of that stuff. I hate it with a passion, because he ruined it for me. But he would be sitting there talking to these girls. So I started skipping school just to catch him in the act. And I did catch him, but I don't know why I stayed with him. Like, my friends didn't like him, my parents didn't like him, but I don't know why I stayed. I think it's because I was free to do whatever I wanted, and I did not want to go back to my parents' house. Well, there was a time where I caught him. He said he didn't do anything with her, but I caught, he used to fly, or he flies airplanes. And he always thought he could get girls because he flew an airplane. I could give a crap. I could care less if he flew airplanes or not. But that's how he got girls, is because he was a pilot and he can take girls, flying. And I caught a girl one time with him sleeping at the hangar where his airplane was, and he said he didn't do anything. Like, I climbed over a freaking barbed wire fence to catch him in the act, and I don't know why, but I didn't leave him. He said he didn't do anything, he just fell asleep, and I was just like, I don't even know, I was like, I don't even know if I was in love with him. I just like, being with him. And so later on, I graduated college, and he was with my parents, and my parents just complained how much they just don't like him, and I'm like, I don't care. Well, he ended up getting a different job, or he ended up moving up in the company, and he got a better job where I am located right now in Madison, Wisconsin. And he ended up you know, finding a job here, and I was working at Walmart at the time, and so I transferred from the Walmart that I was working at to the one that was up in this area. We found an apartment one day and we moved in, and this was June 7th. 2005 is when I moved to the Madison area. So June 7th, because it's my best friend's birthday, and I always remember that's the day I moved away from her. So it was June 7th when we moved in, and I was still working at Walmart. I worked at Walmart for like 1 month, and then I ended up getting a different job just because I wanted to get a job that I went to school for, and I went to school for interior design. So I wanted to find a job that was more in my field. Now I applied at Menards. You know, Menards is a hardware store, kind of like Home Depot and Lowe's. I applied at the Menards I'm from the La Crosse area. If you guys don't know where La Crosse is, it's like 2 hours up north. It's kind of near, it's between, like, you know, it's 2 hours away from Minneapolis. I'm from a small town called Printable. So I applied at a Menards in this town, and I got the job right away. And I quit working at Walmart. And funny thing is, where the Walmart that I used to work at, we lived like right across the street, and he would not let me drive my car. I had to walk to work because he didn't trust me on what I was doing. One thing, I don't know why, but we just did not trust each other at all. I don't know why, but he ended up really taking advantage of me. I had a Cavalier, and he ended up breaking something on it, and he made me buy a car with my credit card. I just did not want to go back to my parents. I did not want anything to, I talked to my parents, but I really did not talk to my parents. I didn't want them anything going on with my life. So he made me buy a freaking Jaguar off of eBay with my credit card because that's what he wanted to do. When we moved to Madison, we hardly had any furniture. He got me to do all this stuff and that stuff. I had a cell phone. I was still under my parents' plan, and he didn't have a phone, and he kept always wanting to use my phone all the time. And I was just like, I was just being controlled, and I didn't know what to do, you guys. I was 20 years old, I turned 21 in August, so I was probably I was still 20. And I was working at Walmart, and then I worked at Menards, and I started Menards in July of 2005. And there were times where I worked till 10 o'clock at night. Well, I found out that he would sit in the parking lot across the street, and he'd wait for me to walk out of the building, and then he'd hurry up and drive home because he did not trust me. He thought I was cheating on him all the time. He got mad at me when I was talking to boys at work, and I'm just a person who gets along with guys pretty easy. You know, when I started dating Graham, I told him, you know, I have guy friends, and he's totally cool with that. You know, I have guy friends, and there's nothing wrong with that, having guy friends. Well, he would sit in the parking lot, and he'd wait for me to get to my car because he thought I was going to go cheat on him. Well, then August started becoming really bad. He would yell at me all the time, accuse me of cheating. He would push me around. The day I started Menards, he shoved my head in the wall. And in my picture, I wish I had my badge, my face was swollen because he hurt my jaw so badly that I couldn't shut my mouth. And I didn't say anything to anybody because I didn't want anybody to know my life. And then at work, people were asking me why I had all these bruises on my body. And I'm like, oh, I'm just a klutz. And I bruise very easily. I do bruise very easily. But I mean, I had arm marks like this on my arms, and people were like, how'd you get that? And I'm like, I fell. And they're like, are you sure? Are you sure? You know, I got taken back to the back office. The store manager's like, I just want to know you're okay. And I said, yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. You know, and people are just worried about me all the time, and they're like, if you need help, you know, let us know. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. Then I was just sick of constantly getting hit and getting thrown against the wall. I have a really bad scar on my knee because he threw me into a tote. And the tote broke and went inside my kneecap. So I have a really bad scar right where my kneecap is because the tote shattered right in there. I sometimes was screaming for help. We lived in an apartment building, And I was screaming for somebody to help me. Nobody would help me. I'm like, somebody please help me. And I didn't want to tell my parents because like I just moved to Madison. I didn't want to sit there and show them like, you know, I can't live on my own. So then I couldn't handle it anymore. I got sick of constantly getting beat up, slammed against the wall, thrown against the floor. It was so terrible. I don't remember everything because I totally zoned it out. I mean, he always slammed my head on the wall. I fell on the ground all the time. I don't know how much. I mean, I got black eyes from him. That's why work started asking me, you know, your makeup can only cover so much. Well, then, someday right after my birthday, my 21st birthday, I decided to go home. I wanted to go home and have fun with my friends. So I ended up going out with my friends. I went out drinking. I stayed at my friend's house. I had a good time, and then I decided to come back. Or no, was I 22 at the time? I was 22 actually, guys. I'm sorry, I was 21 when I still lived in La Crosse. But I remember going home on my 22nd birthday and hanging out with my best friend and friends. We went and saw a movie. We went and hung out. It was nice to go get away. I never told my parents what was happening. I really tried covering up my bruises. I just did not want them to know what was going on. Well then, a week later after my birthday, I found out that one of the girls I went to college with lived in Madison. And I found her on MySpace. You know, MySpace was a huge thing back then. This was before Facebook. Facebook just existed, but it didn't exist to the public. It was only for, you know, schools. And I said, she's like, yeah, I've been living here for like, you know, 2 months or something like that. She's like, I'm still trying to find a roommate. And I said, would there be any possible chance you would let me live with you for the time being until I can find a place on my own? And she's like, well, how about, you know, you could live with me. You just got to be on the lease. So I called her landlord and I told them like what the situation was. And they're like, yeah, we can do something. Because usually they have to do something, they have to approve you right away. But with my situation, they had to really hightail it. So they ended up like, yeah, you can do that. So I ended up getting the keys from her landlord like right away. And I'm like, I'll be there tomorrow. So I called my parents and I did not let him know what was going on. But I called my parents and I told them the truth on what was going on with me, what he was doing to me. I mean, I felt so much better telling my parents. Like, I wish I told people. That's one thing that I really wish I told people, was what was going on, because none of this would have happened. So I called my stepdad and I told him I'm in an abusive relationship and I want to get out of here, but I don't want him to know because you know, he could come after me or do something. So while he was at work one day, my stepdad, I packed stuff like really fast. I mean, I only lived there for 2.5 months, so a lot of my stuff was still in boxes and everything. So what I did is my stepdad came down with a U-Haul truck and I moved completely out that day. We took my bed, we took, you know, everything of mine, and I did have a couple things left over, like my cat Whiskers was with me. She moved in with me and she recently died. So it's even worse. She just died yesterday. But so my stepdad came down. We moved out right away and I did not tell him where I was going. We moved into my apartment and then my stepdad left and I had no car. I had no car at all, you know. So my stepdad brought me, or I think he stayed overnight. I don't remember what happened, but I had no car. So what I ended up having to do was go and tell him that I'm moving out and I need a vehicle. Well, he ended up getting super mad at me, and I says I need to get the rest of my stuff. But then I did find out that my parents actually drove down and gave me a car. I borrowed one of my step-grandpa's car, during this whole week. I think I took off of work just because I needed to deal with this stuff. So I finally got a car, and after I got the car, I went back to get my cat because I didn't want to have her with me. And I started grabbing just a couple more things that I left there. And he started getting really violent with me. And I says, I need to get out of here. We're done. We're no longer good. I says, I just want you out of my life, completely out of my life. Sign it. I made him sign the lease for me to get out. He's like, no, I can take you to court for this. I says, I don't care. I want out of this relationship. I said, it's nothing but I've been miserable the whole entire time. So he signed it. And then he started actually no, he would refuse to sign it. He's like, no, I'm not signing this. You know, you're going to still have to pay rent, blah, 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 blah. Well, I ended up calling the cops on him. I said, I need my stuff. I want my stuff, and you need to sign this. Well, the cops ended up showing up, and they're like, well, you gotta figure this out your own way. I says, I don't care. I moved out. You know, I told him how abusive he was to me. He signed it, and I was pretty much done with him. And then for the past year, he would sit there and he would call me, you know, and tell me all this stuff, and I ended up like blocking him. He'd show up at my work. He started dating some girl, and he'd show up at my work. Now, he lived in an apartment building, and he was looking at the doors and windows, trying to figure out what kind of doors and windows he was. And every time I saw him in the store while I was working, I'd go run and hide because I didn't want him near me. Well, then after like the second or third time I saw him in my store, he knew exactly what he was doing. He was sitting there trying to agitate me. So I ended up contacting the police, and I said, I want to put a restraining order on him. He will not he will not leave me alone. He keeps contacting me. I want out of it 100%. So the police officer's like, well, it's going to cost this much money if you want to put a restraining order on it. I had zero money at all because he basically made me, I was $15,000 in credit card debt because of him, because he made me buy a car and he made me buy furniture. Like, I was just so stupid, and I wish I knew better back then. But I was $15,000 in credit card debt because of him. So the police officer's like, okay, how about this? We'll call him up and we'll tell him if he makes any more contact with you, he will get a restraining order on him. And I'm like, okay. So they called him and they told him what was going on. And after that, I never heard from him again. I did see him in public from time to time, and there's that. And then when I started dating my husband at the time, Graham, he actually started getting jealous because I was in a happy relationship, and he friend requested me on Facebook. And I'm like, why the heck are you being friends with me on Facebook? He's like, oh, I'm sorry, but I still want to be friends with you. And I'm like, you know what? I'll be friends with you. I'll be friends with you. And this was like a year later. And what I ended up doing is Graham and I were super happy. I was posting pictures all the time of me going out with my friends, me hanging out with Graham. And then I moved in with Graham. Graham and I moved in with each other after 6 months of dating because I had no place to go. I either had to live on my own and I could not afford that, or I had to go move back to my parents' house. And he's like, well, we've known each other for a year. We've been dating for 6 months. He's like, would you be interested in living with me? And I said, yeah. Well, the other guy, he would always, sit there and, stalk my Facebook is basically what he did. Well, then what happened is I saw one day that he unfriended me, and I basically got what I wanted. I made him jealous of my life. I had such a better, happy relationship with Graham. It did take a while with Graham. I'm a very stubborn person. And I'm still kind of the same way. I put my foot down like crazy. I got jealous very easily. But then, after dating Graham a while, I'm like, there's no need to get jealous. Graham is he was loyal to me. I didn't have any problems, nothing. I didn't have to sit there and search his phone. I didn't have to go on his computer, nothing. Graham had nothing from me. And ever since then, I knew Graham was the one. Shortly after we dated, I fell in love with him right away. But the point of this is, I was in an abusive relationship, and nobody should go through what I did. And when something happens, you need to speak up. You need to get help. You need to tell people. I went through this abuse for a year, a whole year before I actually did something. My roommate even knew when we were living back at the place. My roommate even knew what was going on, and nobody would help. He wouldn't even help me. He didn't want to get involved. He did not want to get involved because if he got involved, he might have to go find some place to live. But I don't know. I just wanted to make this video to share with you guys what I went through, and that's the reason why I used to be a very nice person. I'm still a sarcastic person, but I used to be, people call me, you know, names all the time because of my attitude. And the reason why I'm like that is because of what I went through. I don't need to take crap from nobody. You treat me like crap, I will call you out on it. My life has changed for that. Do I regret dating him? I regret dating him, but if I didn't date him, I would still be back at my parents' house, or I would still, you know, be back in my hometown, which I don't miss at all. I mean, if you guys compare La Crosse, Wisconsin to Madison, Wisconsin, there's a huge difference. I love Madison. I've lived here for going on 14 years. I love Madison. That's one thing I don't regret, but I do hate how I never spoke up and said anything about getting abused or going through what I did. I still think about it from time to time, but today is like the day where the memories are just coming back, but I really, you know, block it out of my system. If I ever see him again, I will never say one word to him. Graham and I were on a date one night, and he showed up at the same restaurant as me, and I just basically just put my head down and I'm like, Graham, we gotta go right now, because I don't want to make any contact with him. I don't want to have anything to do with him. He completely, you know, ruined my life at the time. I mean, I have scars on my body because of him. I just realized I wish I asked for help right away, or I left that relationship. I really do. But I just wanted to share with you guys, you know, a story of mine that really does hurt. I mean, if you guys are ever in a situation like this, I mean, I know it's hard when some people are married. It's hard to get out of a relationship when you're married than just dating, but you need to get help. I've seen people where they call to order a pizza on 911, and they ask, you know, the people are starting to catch on that when people, you know, call 911 to ask about ordering a pizza, they kind of get ahead that they're in an abusive relationship or something bad's gonna happen. So basically, if you guys are ever in something like this, or if this is ever done to you guys, you need to get help. Talk about it. For me, Graham doesn't really know the whole story, and he'll probably watch this video. Not everybody knows exactly everything what happened. I didn't tell everybody, but, you know, over the course of time, I did talk about it, and I feel so much better talking about it. But I just wanted to share with you guys a relationship that I was in, that I wish never happened, but I'm happy that I met Graham. You know, Graham's a complete 180 different than this guy was. But I just want to say thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed my story. I know you guys enjoy stories that I can talk to you about. I hope to maybe figure out something else. I do have a couple more things that I can talk about. But I will talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.